Okay, so hopefully we're done with part one. Let's move on to part two now. Here's a suggestion. Do not open up a new Excel document for different parts of the same activity. Instead, go down here to where it says Sheet 2 and click on Sheet 2. I happen to put a clip of the data table that you should see on your document here because we're gonna type it over into Excel and then put it basically on our scrap paper and do some calculations and then our graph, and then we'll move it over to Word when we're done. But quick, go down to the sheets again. If you want to go to sheet 3, again, a blank piece of scrap paper. If 3 sheets isn't enough and you have more stuff to do, you can keep adding sheets. And if you double click on them, you can name them. So you might keep things organized by writing part 1, this is part 2, and so forth. And that's really helpful when you have lots and lots of data to work with. All right, so the next thing we want to do is rewrite our data table here. We don't have to get crazy because remember this is just on scrap paper. We can fix everything up when we move it over to Microsoft Word. So we're going to put type of soda here, trial 1 in milliliters, trial 2 in milliliters, and then we want to have a column for average. Anytime you run a trial more than once, or run the same test more than once, we call them trials, and then you always want to take your trials and average them together. So we tried Diet Coke, and then we tried Coke, regular Coca-Cola, and then we tried a Diet Pepsi, and a regular Pepsi. So it sounds like we're changing the type of soda, and that's our independent variable. That's what we decided to try. So we decided to try Mountain Dew and not 7-Up. We are in charge of changing the independent variable. We tried Sunkist. We tried root beer. All right, that's our independent variable. Now we're going to type in our first trial, which is our dependent variable. The fact that this soda bottle had 335 milliliters of soda remaining at the end was dependent upon the fact that it was Diet Coke. If we try regular Coke, it's going to be 423. If we try Diet Pepsi, we've got 351 left, 430, 558. You get the idea here. And then we try it again, and now our data is pretty close. It went from 335, and the second trial was 333. 423, 351. Okay. Now again, this doesn't look neat. It doesn't have to. It's just scrap paper. What you'd like to, or you can do if you like, is highlight your column and scooch it over. Highlight your column, scooch it over, if that really bothers you. But don't skip columns, because then the computer thinks it's zeros. All right, averages. The beauty of Excel is that it's one gigantic, crazy calculator. It will do anything imaginable, stuff that you'll probably never ever need to do in your entire life. It's capable of doing. But let's start with something easy. We want to take the average of trial 1 and trial 2. So here's what we do. We type in equals, because we want this cell to be equal to the result of this calculation. So we type in the word average and open parentheses. So whatever we put in there now, Excel is going to average together for us, and it's going to make whatever's in that cell equal to that value. There's 2 ways to do this. One is the long, tedious way. You can tell Excel what the cells are that you want to average together. You could say that you want to average C5, and see how it highlights C5 in blue? And you want to average it with D5. Oops. And we get 334. Now, I don't feel like typing. Imagine if you had 100 numbers and you had to type in every single cell. That would be kind of tedious. So instead of typing in the numbers, use a shortcut. Put your cursor in the box of the very first number you want it to average, and then drag it to the last number you want it to include in the average. Over here it's easy because we only have 2 numbers. But if we did have 100 data points, you would easily just drag it across through those 100 data points, and it will pick up in blue where those cells are, which cells need to be included. close parentheses, hit enter, and you're done. Very easy. Now, we could do that again. We could type equals average, and I know you're probably looking at the data and saying, well, why not just type in 423? But I'm just trying to show you the features of Excel right now. So you could type in equals average, you could highlight the two, and then hit close parentheses, enter. Or, look, watch another shortcut. If you don't want to do that over and over again, like let's say you had, 100 different independent variables, and we wanted to average each set of trials for that. We certainly don't want to do that 100 times. So here's a trick. See that box right there? That little black box? If you roll your cursor over it and you get the plus sign, that means whatever calculation is done in this cell to get that 334 will repeat, but with the data here. And it'll repeat with the data in this row. And it'll repeat, but with the data in this row, and so forth. So drag it down. So you actually have to click that box, turn into the plus sign, and then drag that corner down, release, and now all of a sudden each one of these, see how this is C6 to D6? So this has the data from this row. And this one's C7 to D7, has the data from this row, and so forth. So super, super easy. Like we could have tried 100 different sodas, ran 100 trials for each, and we could have come up with averages in probably maybe 30 seconds, tops. So it's a great, great tool, great calculator, and you should get used to using this. All right, so let's get rid of our data. And now let's create a graph.